Imagine a world where no one is unhappy. Everyone has everything they want. There is no war, no poverty, no disease, and no pain. Sex is freely available. Drugs keep everyone content, and entertainment is constant. Sounds perfect, right? That is the nightmare Aldous Huxley described in 1932, and it is scarier than anything Orwell ever wrote. Brave New World was published 17 years before, 1984, but people tend to forget about it because its dystopia is subtler. Huxley imagined a future where humanity has solved all the big problems by getting rid of humanity itself, not through violence or coercion, but through genetic engineering, psychological conditioning, and pleasure. The result is a stable, efficient society where everyone is perfectly content and perfectly enslaved. The book is set 600 years in the future, in a world that has abolished families, marriage, and individual identity. Babies are grown in bottles, not born. They are designed and conditioned from conception to fit into a strict caste system. And instead of enforcing control through punishment, the government keeps people docile through constant stimulation, casual sex, and a drug called Soma that makes unpleasant feelings disappear. This is totalitarianism through pleasure, and it might actually be how it happens. The central insight of Brave New World is that you do not need to oppress people with force if you can make them love their oppression. Huxley saw that a dictatorship based on pleasure would be far more stable than one based on fear. In Orwell's 1984, Winston Smith rebels because he is miserable. In Huxley's world, rebellion is nearly impossible because everyone is too happy to want anything to change. When suffering has been eliminated, so has the desire for freedom. This is what makes the book so uncomfortable. Most dystopian fiction shows us a future we would obviously hate. Brave New World shows us a future we might actually choose. Infinite entertainment, no responsibilities, no difficult emotions, no need to think deeply about anything. Just consume, enjoy, repeat. If that sounds familiar, it should. We are building it right now. The world of the novel is governed by the world state, whose motto is community, identity, stability. Community means everyone belongs to everyone, which in practice means no deep relationships are allowed. Identity means your caste determines who you are from birth. And stability is the highest value, the thing that justifies everything else. Any threat to stability is eliminated, not through violence, but through reconditioning or exile. If this is hitting, hit subscribe. We break down the books that show us where we are headed and how to think clearly when the world is trying to numb us. Links to the book and related resources are in the description below. People in Brave New World are divided into 5 castes: alphas, betas, gammas, deltas, and epsilons. Alphas are tall, intelligent, and beautiful. They run society. Epsilons are short, stupid, and ugly. They do manual labor. This is not a matter of social mobility or education. It is biological. The castes are designed in the hatcheries through genetic manipulation and chemical treatment of embryos. Lower castes are deliberately made inferior, so they will be happy doing menial work. The creepy part is that it works. The epsilons are genuinely happy. They have been conditioned to love their servitude. They do not resent the alphas because they do not have the cognitive capacity to imagine being anything other than what they are. Huxley understood that if you can engineer away dissatisfaction, you can make any system stable. The question is whether a society built on that principle is worth having. The novel follows Bernard Marx, an alpha who feels alienated despite his high status. He is shorter than other alphas and rumored to have had alcohol in his blood surrogate during development, which makes him defective. He dates Lenina Crown, a beta who is perfectly content with her shallow, promiscuous life. Bernard takes her to a savage reservation, one of the few places where old-fashioned humans still live with families, religion, and suffering. There they meet John, a young man born naturally to a world-state woman who got stranded on the reservation years ago. John becomes the main character of the second half of the book, and he is the voice of humanity in a world that has lost it. He was raised on Shakespeare, which he treats as sacred text. He believes in love, honor, suffering, and meaning. When Bernard brings him back to the world state as a curiosity, John is horrified by everything he sees. People have sex without love, pick Soma to avoid any unpleasant emotion, and have no understanding of sacrifice or commitment. To John, they are not fully human. The book is named after a line from Shakespeare's The Tempest. Miranda, who has lived her entire life on an isolated island, sees other people for the first time and says, "O brave new world that has such people in it." It is meant to be innocent and optimistic, but in context, it is deeply ironic. The people she is excited about are actually terrible. And the same is true in Huxley's novel. The world state looks advanced and enlightened, but it has sacrificed everything that makes life meaningful in exchange for shallow comfort. John's confrontation with the system reaches its peak in a conversation with Mustapha Mond, one of the world controllers. Mond is brilliant. He has read Shakespeare, studied history, and understands exactly what has been lost. But he defends the system anyway. He argues that stability and happiness are worth more than art, science, religion, and individual freedom. Most people are not capable of handling real freedom, he says. They are happier being controlled. Soma is the drug that keeps the world state running. It is described as all the advantages of Christianity and alcohol without any of the defects. It makes you feel good immediately, has no hangover, and is not addictive in a harmful way. Whenever someone starts to feel uncomfortable, they take Soma, feeling sad. Soma, feeling anxious. Soma, starting to think critically about your life. Soma. The drug does not just suppress pain, it suppresses the capacity to question. Soma is Huxley's prophecy about how control would actually work in the future, not through overt censorship or violence, but through an endless stream of distractions and mood management. Entertainment, pharmaceuticals, social media, streaming services, the feed. Anything that keeps you from sitting with uncomfortable thoughts or asking hard questions. The goal is not to make you believe a lie. The goal is to make you too distracted and too comfortable to care about the truth. Huxley later wrote an essay where he compared his dystopia to Orwell's. He argued that his version was more likely. Orwell feared those who would ban books. Huxley feared there would be no reason to ban a book because no one would want to read one. Orwell feared those who would deprive us of information. Huxley feared those who would give us so much information that we would be reduced to passivity. Orwell feared the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. In the world state, history has been abolished. The motto is, history is bunk. No one studies the past because the past is full of instability, war, disease, and inequality. Why would anyone want to remember that? The past is a threat because it shows that things could be different. If people knew that humanity once valued things like love, family, art, and individual achievement, they might start wanting those things again. So the past is erased, and everyone lives in an eternal present of shallow pleasures. This is different from 1984, where the party actively rewrites history to suit its purposes. In Brave New World, history is not rewritten. It is simply forgotten. People are conditioned from birth to have no interest in anything that happened before their own lifetimes. The result is the same: a population with no sense of continuity, no ability to learn from the past, and no framework for imagining alternatives to the present system. The elimination of serious art follows the same logic. In the world state, entertainment is everywhere, but it is all shallow. Feelies, which are movies that stimulate all the senses, are the most popular form of entertainment. They provide intense sensory pleasure, but no intellectual or emotional depth. High art, serious literature, and complex music have been abolished because they make people think and feel in ways that are destabilizing. A population that consumes only shallow entertainment is easier to control. One of the most chilling aspects of the book is how it treats individuality. In the world state, being an individual is seen as a defect. The conditioning process is designed to make people think and feel in uniform ways. Nonconformity is a sign of malfunction, not uniqueness. And because people are engineered and conditioned from birth, there is no real sense of self to rebel with. You cannot choose to be different when your preferences, abilities, and temperament were all determined in a lab before you were conscious. This is why John's rebellion fails. He tries to opt out of the system, but the system does not need him to participate. It just needs him to not disrupt everyone else. When he refuses to conform, he is not tortured or imprisoned. He is just relocated somewhere. He cannot influence anyone. And when he tries to live alone and preserve his humanity through self-denial and suffering, the media turns it into entertainment. Even his attempt to escape becomes content for the masses to consume. The ending is one of the bleakest in literature. John retreats to a lighthouse to live in isolation and practice self-discipline. Reporters find him and film him whipping himself as penance. The footage goes viral, and crowds show up demanding a show. In despair at his inability to remain free, John hangs himself. The system does not need to kill him. It just needs to make solitude impossible and turn everything, even suffering, into spectacle. So what do you do with Brave New World? First, recognize when you are being managed through pleasure rather than coercion. Anytime a platform or institution keeps you engaged through constant stimulation and emotional manipulation, that is the Brave New World playbook. The question is not whether it feels good. The question is whether it is making you more or less capable of thinking, choosing, and living deliberately. Second, resist the Soma impulse. Not every uncomfortable feeling needs to be immediately fixed. Boredom, sadness, frustration, and even pain can be signals worth paying attention to. Huxley feared a world where people would lose the capacity to sit with difficult emotions. That capacity is what allows growth, change, and genuine understanding. If your first response to discomfort is always distraction, you are training yourself out of depth. Third, defend your ability to be bored. Boredom is not a problem to solve. It is the precondition for creativity, reflection, and real rest. The world state eliminates boredom by filling every moment with entertainment. The result is a population that never thinks deeply about anything. If you find yourself unable to sit quietly without reaching for your phone, that is worth taking seriously. The ability to do nothing is one of the most important abilities you can cultivate. Brave New World is often compared to 1984, and the comparison is useful. Orwell shows you how freedom dies when people are terrified. Huxley shows you how it dies when people are entertained. Both are real threats. But Huxley's dystopia is sneakier because it does not look like oppression. It looks like progress, convenience, and universal happiness. That is why it might actually be the one we end up with. Huxley wrote a follow-up in 1958 called Brave New World Revisited, where he looked at how his predictions were playing out. He was alarmed at how quickly the world was moving in the direction he had imagined. Advances in pharmacology, mass media, and psychology were all being used in ways that increased control through pleasure rather than pain. And that was 65 years ago. If Huxley could see the internet, smartphones, and algorithmic feeds, he would recognize them immediately. The book also raises a question that does not have an easy answer. Is it better to be happy or to be free? Mustapha Mond argues that most people would choose happiness. And he might be right. If you could take a pill that made you perfectly content with a shallow, controlled life, would you take it? The world state says yes, and so does almost everyone in it. The book forces you to confront whether you would actually resist or whether you would just take the Soma and stop worrying. If you have not read it, the book is shorter than 1984 and easier to get through. It is also funnier in a dark way. Huxley had a sharp satirical eye, and the world state is full of absurd details that are both ridiculous and terrifying. But underneath the satire is a serious warning about what happens when technology, psychology, and power combine to create a system that makes people love their chains. Here is the bottom line. Brave New World is the dystopia where everyone is happy and no one is free. Orwell feared a boot stamping on a human face forever. Huxley feared a world where people would learn to love the boot. And the thing is, his version is seductive. It promises the elimination of suffering, conflict, and difficulty. All you have to do is give up depth, meaning, and the hard-won capacity to be a full human being. That trade is being offered to us right now, every day, in 1,000 different forms. The book shows you what happens if you take the deal. Tomorrow, I will distill Huxley into one 60-second warning. This video was created by combining human research and script writing with AI-assisted visuals and production. Links to the book and related resources are in the description below.